Hi, we're going to create a report of donations broken down by size of donation and the account into which the donation went. So the first thing we're going to do is to pull a report from Club Express for the donations. It's actually going to be a transactions payments by account, user payments by account, and in here we're going to collect for all accounts, and we'll choose a date range for this purpose. It's going to be January 1st of 2022 through November 8th of 2022. And we're going to go ahead and put it out into the comma separated value file format so that we can then build it into an Excel table. And we'll go ahead and open the file in Excel. So here we have the table in Excel, and just to make it more readable, I'm going to go ahead and auto-size the columns. Now, the way this report gets generated, there's a lot of columns in here with data that we're not going to be interested in, so I'm going to get rid of the clutter before I do anything else. We do not need the summation lines that came in the report, so we'll get rid of those. And then we have some columns here. B is an empty column at this point, and C, D, E, and F are just basically headers that would go into a formatted, such as a PDF report, and so we're not interested in those. The rest of the stuff we are. So I'm going to erase these columns from the report. And now you see that the other thing I'm going to do is come over here. G is, it's an interesting thing. All it has in here is some, I think it's just notes, but we'll leave that in there just in case we should ever want to do any filtering on it. And H and I are also summary data that it's done this way again for the formatted reports, since we're not doing that, we're working with the CSV file. We can get rid of these as well. So now our table is going to consist of columns A through F, and I'm going to go ahead and insert a single row at the top into which I will go ahead and put the column headers. So the first one we'll call account name. Then this is going to be transaction date. The donor's name. And this is the payment date. And then this is a description of the item and the amount. So now we have column headers, and so I'm going to go ahead and select the entire table, which is really just through column G and row 4435, and so we will come up to insert table. This covers the range that we're interested in, and we have headers in the table, so we can click OK, and it creates the table. And again, for just reusability, I'm going to go ahead and spread these out a little bit. I'm going to change this column G's header to notes. Again, I don't know what that field is, and I'm not using it for anything. I just didn't want to throw it away. Okay, so at this point, we have a table that is full of every account into which a payment was made, and you can see it's thousands of them. But what we're going to want to do is to look at just the donations. But the end report that I'm creating is going to be an Excel pivot table, and that's where we're going to do the filtering on the accounts, and we'll see that in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and create a pivot table now, and to do so I will select any cell within the table, and I will come up to Insert, Pivot Table, and it's suggesting, because I have selected something within that table, suggesting table 1, which is the table I just created from the matrix data. We'll go ahead and put it in a new worksheet, which means Excel is going to create a new worksheet for me and put the pivot table into it. So I'll click OK. And we can see now that Excel has added a new sheet, sheet 1. It has started a pivot table for me, and it has selected a cell within the pivot table. And whenever a cell within the pivot table is selected, the pivot table field's format dialog exists here on the right hand side. And this is what we're going to use to build up our pivot table field. So the two things that I'm most interested in right now are the donation amounts and the account into which the donation is being made. So I'm going to start off defining my rows, and the first row is going to be account name. So I drag account name from the pivot table fields down into the rows box. And you'll see now that we have now over here the pivot table has changed into having a single column which has each of the accounts enumerated in order from top to bottom alphabetically. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull my amount. This is the amount of the individual donation. I'm going to enter it in here as a second row, which means now it's subordinate to the accounts. And you'll see when we look over here on the left, we now have the major field is the account name, and the subordinate field is going to be the amount. So we look at here is for the annual meeting banquet account, we have payments of $17.50, $27.50, $45, and $135. Okay, and in a moment here we'll get rid of all these extraneous accounts and so forth. But before we do that, let's go ahead and we will pull into our sigma values. Okay, sigma values are the summing that Excel does in the pivot table, and this is where the real value of pivot tables comes to play. We're going to first want to have in column B here, we're going to want to have a count of the number of each donation size. And the way we'll do that is to take amount again and drag it down into sigma values. And you notice that it's suggesting the sum of the amount, and if you look over here you'll see that this is that's what shows up in column B, but we don't want sum of amount just quite yet. So I'm going to click on the drop down in the sigma value sum of amount, and I'm going to select value field settings, and this is where you can set up a little more detail as to what you want into that field. And what I'm really looking for here rather than sum is a count. And I'm going to go ahead while I'm here and define the column header for that, and I'm just going to say count. We'll just leave that in there. I think that's sufficient for our needs. And I'll click the OK button. And now you can see, going back to our annual meeting banquet, there was $117.50, $127.50, $144.45, $135 for a total of 147 payments made into the annual meeting banquet account. And now we're going to want to go ahead and see what that sums up to for each of those counts, subtotals. Okay, so I'm going to take amount again and drag it one more time down into sigma values. And that gives me a third column now, which is sum of amount. And that is exactly what I'm looking for, but just I'm going to go into the value field settings anyway to change the amount, the column header to total. We'll just call it total. And now you see over here that we have a pivot table consisting of major category is account name, minor category is payment amount. And for each payment amount, we have a count of the number of payments that we've made of each amount. And then we have the total of the donations or payments that were made at each level. So the next thing is, well, we're not interested in people paying for their annual meeting banquet. What we are interested in is anything that was paid into a donation. So what we're going to do is go up here and go to our account name, and we're looking to account name because each type of donation goes into a specific financial account, and that's how we're going to determine where the donation went, what kind of what was the purpose of the donation. So we'll go up to our account name, and over here on the right hand side we have the little drop down arrow. We're going to go ahead and drop this box down, and it will show to us all the accounts, and this is the familiar Excel type filtering and sorting box. It's just the same as if you had an Excel table and you wanted to sort or filter on a particular column. Very much the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and, just to make it a little more readable here, I'm going to enlarge this a bit so that we can see more of it. Okay, and I'm going to deselect everything and then just go in and pick out the accounts that I'm interested in. So as we come down through here, account bequests, that's a donation. Donation into the general fund, donation into the Keystone Modeler, donation for station and archives, and the K4 1361 restoration donation. And as you look at the rest of these here, we're also going to include the contributing ad. And of course, the contributing and sustaining ads are, special things that we've set up to make things a little easier for members who are renewing. But they are still donations from a tax standpoint and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and include those as well, the contributing ad and the sustaining ad. The rest of these annual dues, sales tax, some or financial accounting things that we keep track of. And then all these accounts Y and Z are items in the store. Okay, we're not interested in those either. So going back and reviewing, we are including all the accounts that have to deal with donations only. And we'll click the OK button on this, and voila, when we look over here at our pivot table, we now see only those donation accounts. Now, this number it shows a pretty good sizable number here, and a good portion of that is actually our K4 1361 restoration donation. And I'm going to go ahead and leave that in there for the time being, because if you're figuring total donations for this year at any rate, that's a significant portion. Obviously, this is like a one-time deal, so it's not something we'd have in there every year. Okay, so there you go, and you've got, for example, donations into the general fund. There were 119 of them for a total of $5,749. And you can see how they break out, everything from a $0 payment to $2,000. If we wanted to remove clutter on this, I don't know where the $0 payments came from, but we could also go into amount here, and we could deselect 0 and get rid of these. It makes no sense to be concerned about reporting a donation of $0 in there. So we're just reducing a couple of lines and some count in there, and you'll see that 0 disappeared over here. So we have 116 donations to the general account, totaling $5,749. And now we can break them out. So, for example, there were 36 $10 donations for a total of $360. Thing to note on this too is that the total, the summary line for each account, each category in the summary is at the top of that account. And that may seem counterintuitive at first, but it is very nice when you want to collapse your report, for example, in this way, where we now can see that we can see a breakdown, by account as to how much and how many donations there were for each account. So just in a very few minutes, we have a very nice, very powerful way of presenting our donation information. I'm going to do one more thing while we're here, just so I can show you the value of this. This is really nice for presenting things from the account point of view. But suppose you wanted to have an overall breakdown by the major category being amount of donation and the minor category being of the account name. So, for example, you would say there were X number of $10 donations, and they were spread across the accounts, with so many going to this account and so many going to that account. This becomes a very trivial thing to do. All we have to do to change our report to reflect it that way is to go in here and take our rows and reorder them and put the major one at the top. So now the rows show the major category is amount and the minor is account name. And now we'll look over here, and for example, we would here, well, that all highlighted as I didn't expect it to, but let's do this. Okay, so now we can see that there were 459 $10 donations made. Everybody donated a little bit, but it adds up to $4,590. That was spread out across The general fund, we had 36 donations, 84 donations to the Keystone Modeler, 45 donations to stations and archives, 8 donations to the 1361 fund, and 286 donations were made as sustaining ad contributions. So there you have it. You can easily see how what size of donations were made and how they were distributed across our accounts. So you can do that either way. So this is just a demonstration of how powerful this mechanism is. In just a few minutes, we went from a standard Club Express report into a nice pivot table that summarizes our information very nicely for presentation in an actual report. And that's it. We'll talk to you later.